you are a fellow octave mandolin player and maybe you're struggling with chords, trying to find chords that sound good and that don't hurt your fingers from trying to play bar chords for long periods of time, then I have something for you. I'm super excited to announce that I finally have a chord chart available. If you click the link in the description, I have a chord chart specifically for octave mandolin. These are my favorite chords to play on the octave mandolin, and my hope is that you can go purchase that from my website, download it, and then come back to this video so that I can walk you through all of these chords, what they mean, how to read them, how to play them, all of that stuff. And I really think that this is going to be super beneficial for you if you are new to the octave mandolin and just want to get some good chords under your belt. And I do just want to say that this chord chart is short. It's great for beginners. It doesn't have just a whole bunch of major sevens and minor sevens and dominant sevens. Sometimes I think there are other books out there for octave mandolin chords. Those are great resources, but sometimes I think it's easy to get a little bit overwhelmed when you just have tons and tons of chords thrown at you. So this is a little bit of a shorter chart, but a great place to get you started, and you will be able to play any major or minor chord that you want to from this chord chart. And these are the chords that I use the most often. I use these chords all of the time in worship music, in songwriting, and playing along with other songs. So go ahead, go down to the description, grab your chord chart, and let's get started. All right, so I have my chord chart over here on the side just to make sure that I am not skipping anything. So if I'm looking off over to the side, that is why. Just a couple little things I want to state before we get into this. The tuning of my octave mandolin and the standard tuning for the octave mandolin is G, D, A, E. That is from the very lowest string to the highest string. That is what this chord chart is written for. It's written for the tuning of G, D, A, E. Okay, so this very first line of chords I call our open chords. And they're called open chords because in these chords we use 2 or more open strings in these chords. So if we go ahead and look at the very first chord on the chart, you're going to see it says G major. So it's a major chord. It's going to sound happy and bright. Major chords sound happy while minor chords sound sad. And right under that G major, you're going to see 2 circles. Now those circles indicate that we're going to play those strings open. So that's going to be our open G string, our open D string, and then we're going to have, like it says, our first finger on the 2nd fret and then 2nd finger on the 3rd fret. Okay? This is our open G chord. Pretty simple. The next one is our G minor chord. We still have those 2 circles. So our G and our D strings stay open. And all we're doing to make this a G minor chord is we're lowering our first finger 1 fret. This gives us a G minor chord, which has that more sad sound to it. Okay, so far, so good, hopefully. Moving on, we get to a G2 chord. Now, as you can see, this chord doesn't say if it's major or minor, and something that you have to know as you're reading chord charts is that if a chord is a minor, it will be specified either by the word minor or by a lowercase m. So if the chord has the word minor or a lowercase m, you can assume that it's minor. But if it doesn't have that, then it's just implied that it is a major chord. So this chord, G2, because it doesn't have the word minor or a lowercase m, it is a G major chord with an added 2. So we're gonna have, and this time we have 3 open strings. We have our open G string, open D string, open A string, and then our 2nd finger on the 3rd fret. This is our G2 chord. It's a really pretty open chord, okay? Moving on, so now we have something that we haven't had before. We still have two circles on top of this next chord, the D major chord. However, now we have an X. So that X, you might be able to guess what it means. It means that we are not gonna play our lowest string. So it is not open, we are not playing it, we are not hitting that string. If you hit that string on this chord, it's not gonna sound great. It's not gonna sound like a D major chord. So we're not playing our lowest string. We're gonna play our open D string, open A string, and then first finger is on the second fret. That gives us our D major chord. Same thing if we continue forward, we have a D minor chord. We still have that X on top, so we're not playing our lowest G string. And we're gonna lower our first finger 1 fret. This gives us the minor version of a D chord. So this is D minor. Okay, and then this last chord is an A5. Okay, so you might be wondering what in the world is an A5 chord. So an A5 chord simply means that we play the 1 and the 5 of this chord. So we play the A, which is our 1, and then we count up 5 notes, A, B, C, D, E. E is our 5th. So this chord just has the A and the E in it. It does not have a 3rd. That's what A5 means. We just play the A and we play the 5. So this chord is, we play all the strings in this chord. We have first finger on the 2nd fret on the G string, second finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, open A, open E. This is a very big open chord as well. I use this one all the time. Heading on to that next line, it says movable major chords. Okay, so what does that mean? So as you can see, all of these chords look very, very similar. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the very first chord, and I'm gonna explain why it is movable. So the very first chord is an A major chord. We do have 1 circle above it. So that means that our E string is gonna be open. And we have first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, second finger on the 2nd fret on the D string, and then our 4th finger on the 4th fret on the A string, open E. So this is our A major chord. This is a really pretty chord. It's a little bit tricky to play. It kind of feels like a big reach. You can, instead of doing first finger, 2nd finger cramped onto the same fret, you could just take your first finger, play those same exact notes, but just bar it instead. If that's easier for you. So this is a chord shape. So this is a shape that we can move up the neck, and that's what is written on this chord chart. So hopefully it'll make sense as we keep going through this. So we are going to keep this shape. So our fingers are not gonna change from this position, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna move our whole hand up 2 frets. So my finger position is not changing. The fingering that I'm using is not changing, but I'm bringing that up 2 frets, okay? So we're going up 1 note, 2 frets equals one note. So we're going from an A chord up to a B chord. So now we have a B chord. And all we had to do was move up the neck. This is one of my favorite B chords. I think it's really pretty. But we still have our open E on the top. And as you can see, to the right of this chord, the B major chord, you can see there's a little 2 and then F, R. And that means that this specific chart for this chord is starting on the 2nd fret. So if we start on the 2nd fret of our mandolins here, and then we count up third, fourth. That means this is where we're supposed to put our fingers. Okay, moving on to the C major. All we have to do is move this shape up 1 fret. Now I have a C major chord. So it's pretty simple. Hopefully you're starting to see the pattern here. Okay, that's C major, and again we keep this E on top, and you'll see actually that the E is open for all of these chords, and I did that on purpose because it makes it so much easier. One, it sounds really pretty when you're moving in between chords to have that open E as we go in between chords. It's ringing out and it sounds really, really pretty, but also it keeps us from having to play bar chords this whole time, which gets really, really tiring. Moving on to our next chord, which is going to be our D major chord with an added 2. So we're going to take this shape, move it up 2 frets. And as you can see on the chart here, even though the chart looks the same, we're moving up frets because you'll see the B major said 2 frets, and then the C major said 3 frets, and then the D2 now says we're starting at the 5th fret, so we do keep moving up. So this is our D major chord. Love this chord. It's a beautiful chord. Okay, we take this, we move it up 2 more frets, we get our E major chord. I love this one as well. And one more time, if we take this, we move it up 1 fret, we get an F chord with a major 7 here on top. So, I mean, we pretty much just moved all the way up the neck, and right there, that gives you a whole bunch of different chords. We can take this exact shape and move it over a string as well. So if we go back down here and take our A shape and we move it over a string, so we shift everything over 1 string and we don't play our lowest string, we can keep going as well. This is not written in on the chart, so this is just an extra little tidbit that you can get from this video. So this would be an E chord here. This is with my 1st and 2nd finger on the 2nd fret. You can do an F chord, which we already did. You can do F sharp, you can do G, G sharp, A, so on and so forth. Moving on to the 3rd line. So these are also movable major chords, except this is the 2 shape. So by 2, I mean all of these chords, as you can see, A2, C2, D2, E2. So if we take the very first one, A2, it means that we're playing an A major chord and we're adding the 2nd note. So if we count up 2 from A, B. So this is an A major chord with a B note added into it. And these chords are absolutely beautiful. I love these chords. And they're pretty simple to play because all of your fingers are on the same fret, just like it's written. We have our open E, good old open E. It's a really pretty chord. Okay, now the next chord, C2, we're gonna move that up, same exact shape. Fingering stays the same, we're just moving it up the neck. This is a C2. We move that up 2 frets, we go to the D2. And for the D2, I'm not playing my 3rd finger. It just sounds a little bit more open without that extra fretted note. But it's still a D2 chord. Keep going, E2. We can do what I just talked about a second ago. So this is as high as we can go. I mean, you could do an F if you kept going, but I wanted to show you guys on the actual chart that you can move this over another string. So we finished with our E2. So now we're going to go to the F2. And again, we have that X, meaning we're not going to play our lowest string on this next chord on the F2. And we're going to do the same shape, except now we're starting on the D string. So this is an F2. Move that up 2 frets, G2. So all of those are super, super helpful chords. Okay, moving on to the second page, we get our movable minor chord shapes. These are some of my favorite, and if you can catch on by now, we learn a minor shape and we move it up the neck. So this is really not complicated at all. I mean, you can basically, if you just learn the minor shape, the major shape, the minor shape, the 2 shape, and then the inversion shape, you'll be able to play tons and tons of chords, which is awesome. So if we go to second page, we have the A minor chord, which is very, very similar to our A major chord. The only difference is we are lowering 1 note. So this is our minor shape. And again, we have that sound, that sad minor sound. So this is our A minor. We move this up 2 frets. We get a B minor. I love this chord. We move it up 2 frets. C sharp minor. We move it up 1 more fret. D minor. And then since we're keeping our open E string up here on the top, sometimes that open E string will add in a note to a chord that is not necessarily supposed to be in that chord, but so like in this instance, we're playing a D minor chord, but because we're keeping that open E on top, it adds a note that's a little bit out of the chord, but I think it sounds really cool. Okay, so that's our D minor. And then we have our E minor. Keep moving up. So that's our E minor. And then once again, just like all of the other shapes, we can take this shape, move it over a string. So all of these fingers are moving them over 1 string. And now we're going back down. And this is our F sharp minor. And you can keep this going up if you want to. I didn't write all of the possible things you could do because, I mean, once you know the shape, you can move it wherever. So F sharp, G minor, G sharp, A minor, B flat, B, C. I mean, you could just, you could just keep going up and up and up. Well, now we are already on to the last line. So this, you might be a little bit confused by these chords. That is totally understandable. They look a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with these chords. You're like, why do we have 2 chords now? So these are our movable major inversion shape chords. So basically what this means is if we take the very first one, so the very first one says E/G sharp or E over G sharp. So what this means is that we are playing an E chord, but our bass note is a G sharp. So it's an E chord, but instead of E being our bass note, G sharp is now our bass note. Does that make sense? So the left letter is our chord, and then the letter on the right is our bass note. So this is an E over G sharp. So if we follow the chart here, we have first finger on first fret on the G string, second finger on the second fret on the D string, third finger on the second fret on the A string, open E. So this is our our E over G sharp chord. So this is our E over G sharp chord. Okay, once again, same thing. We're gonna move this up. We're gonna move this up a couple frets. And this is our G, so it's a G chord with a B in the bass. And as you can see, this time we have an X. Always look for those X's. Those X's are very important. But this time the X is over our E string, our 4th string. So we're not going to hit our top string for this chord. So this is a G over B. Cool. We can move this up 2 frets. That gets us to an A chord over a C sharp. And now we're playing all 4 chords again. Okay, we move this up this time. You can move it up here, or you can also go over a string. Now we get our B chord over a D sharp, and now we have that X over our lowest string. So our B chord over D sharp, we move it up a fret, we get C over E, and then we move it up 2 more frets, we get our D over F sharp chord. So those are all of the chords. Hopefully you were able to follow along. I hope that wasn't too complicated. If you have any questions, if it doesn't make sense, then feel free to put those down in the comment section below. You will also notice if you download this chart that on the 3rd page, I have just kind of a guide for some of the things that I talked about in this video of how to read these chords, how they work. Hopefully that will help to answer any questions that you have. But if you have any more, feel free to put those in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I would love to hear your feedback, love to see your comments. Hopefully you found this helpful. These are my favorite chords to use. I use them all the time. So thank you for watching. If you feel like hanging around, I have a video where I talk about specific tips for actually chording, as far as hand position, tips for changing in between chords quickly, how to chord most efficiently. So that would definitely be a video that would greatly help you. I will link it down below. Don't forget to hit that like button down below. That really helps me out. And stick around if you want to see new videos like this every single week.